Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this show. On today's show, we're going to be covering a bunch of the latest news in AI. And then what we're going to be doing is doing a little bit of a deep dive into what's called a PRD or project requirement document. And then we're going to be showing you some stuff that I've built in Lovable using Lovable Cloud, which is their recent release, talking about how that project's going, what I've learned. I'll share my screen. We'll get all into it. So today is October 10th. It's 10/10/25. And I'm joined today by Andy. I'm Brian, and we're holding down the fort for the Daily AI Show. Today, it's just the two of us, but that's okay because I think we got some really, really fun, really helpful information today. Today, I think here's what I would say, Andy, you tell me if you agree. If you've thought about dipping your toe into the vibe coding, if you've thought about dipping your toe into something like a Lovable or Bolt or Cursor or others, that there's ways to cause yourself less self-inflicted pains. There's ways to do things the right way, just like with prompt engineering. And this is just a larger version of prompt engineering. And so some of the things you're going to walk through, some of the examples I'll show, kind of build on that idea. But also, I just want to make sure everybody knows too, that this is not about being perfect. This is not about Andy or myself telling you exactly how it's going to work. Because as you'll see with some of my examples, there's been some failures. There's been some missteps. There's been some places where I truly felt like if I had done a better job with the PRD earlier, I might not have run into some of these issues. And sometimes issues just literally mean using too many credits and burning through literal money in the form of tokens or credits, the way some of these systems use. So lots to cover there. But before we get into all of that, Andy, let's kick it off with some news of the day. I'll let you jump in first if you have one or two. But yeah, what do you have that's come up in the last 24, 48 hours?
Yeah, here's some interesting data that comes from Air Street Capital's 8th annual State of the AI Market Report. It's a trusted industry benchmark. First of all, they find that OpenAI still leads in the realm of research, but China's open weight ecosystems are close behind. With 40% of all the new fine tunes on Hugging Face are powered by Qwen AI. Okay, so China is definitely leading the way in terms of open source, but OpenAI is still ahead of those open source platforms in respective research and capabilities. And here's the next point of data that I thought was really interesting is that 44% of US businesses are now paying for AI, and that's up from just 5% last year.
That's insane.
That's a huge jump. Okay, so this is validation that there really is a market out there for AI. And another news item I've got has to do with Sundar Pichai of Google's announcement yesterday. We'll talk about
you may have the same one, but that's okay. I'll do the Amazon version of that. You do that one.
Great. So the average contract value in 2025 for companies paying for AI, those 44% was $530,000. So we're not talking about a contract for a small consultant doing that being included in these numbers. That this is big money being spent on AI. The other little thing that I thought was really an interesting metric was how much capability per dollar is spent is being advanced by the service providers, and they compared DeepMind and OpenAI. So for the amount of money that you spend every 3.4 months, if you're spending it with DeepMind, the money basically doubles the capability per dollar spent. And for OpenAI, it takes 5.8 months. So they're making a measurement of how cost efficient the research and development and delivery of products are, comparing Google DeepMind to OpenAI's research. So Google again is kind of leading the way. And so what did they do? Gemini announced yesterday. Google announced yesterday at their Gemini for Work conference. They announced Gemini Enterprise, and I want to read to you from the sort of the published blog by the lead of Google Cloud AI what this means. Okay. So it's an AI-powered conversational platform designed to bring the full power of Google AI, which starts at infrastructure all the way up to and including, intelligent agents, to every employee for every workflow. It's built with the most advanced Gemini models. It enables you to chat with your company's documents, data, and applications. It gives you tools to build and deploy AI agents, as well as a suite of pre-built agents. 9 of the top 10 AI labs and nearly every AI unicorn already use Google Cloud AI. That's what they announced. Okay, so behind the scenes, the big players are actually going, okay, we're going to use Google as the backdrop. It's the infrastructure AI for our own operations.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now through a no-code workbench, any user from marketing to finance and any other team can analyze information, orchestrate agents, and automate processes across the organization. And it has a task force of these pre-built Google agents for deep research, data insights, etc. And you can easily add custom agents, so they say. We'll have to see that. And it says, an agent is only as good as its context. And so Gemini Enterprise securely connects to your company's data wherever it lives, from Google Workspace to Microsoft 365 to Salesforce to SAP and many others. So they've got all the connectors, they have all of the power, and they're saying to their enterprise customers who are using Google Application Suite and Google Workspace right now, you don't have to go anywhere else for AI for automating your business and developing advanced AI agents. It's right here.
Yeah, this is a big deal. I'm curious with the terminology being enterprise, where this I don't know if you saw anything on it as far as where cost would be for this, because I know a lot of clients right now that could use us at scale going in and building this up for them and just sort of standing it up, managing it.
Right.
A lot of times with these tools, it's not that, a company right now might look at that and go, that sounds exactly like we need. We're in, Scaled is like this. We use Google Documents all the time. We're in Google Workspace. We use Notebook, and we use, that's just at scale. That's just us, the people that work at my company.
Yeah.
Having something that's a little more unified as the AI lead at Scaled not only would be really helpful for my Scaled teammates, and we have a deep bench of contractors that we work with who are also just so much a part of what we do. It would be great to be able to say, hey, I'm going to show you this as a gem, or I'm going to show you this as an agent, and it already connects to our Salesforce and it's everywhere it needs to be, but you don't have to look outside this ecosystem that Google has sort of put together here. Now, I tried to find like a little bit more about like seeing screen grabs and stuff. Basically, what you just shared, Andy, is what I kind of heard as well. I'll be interested to look into this more, see a couple of videos of it being, used. Like, what does it actually look like? I think that will help. But I like the idea of it. I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what it costs. That's going to be part of it. Like I said, usually anytime you see like enterprise labeled on something, you could associated cost with that usually goes up.
It's large companies that have very large IT budgets. Yeah.
Yeah. So this may not be something that would work for my particular clients because I don't typically work with enterprise. But anyway, interesting nonetheless. Now I'll pivot just from that because Amazon actually had I don't know about similar, but in the same vein type story. So I'll just pull that up on screen super quick. So Amazon, meet Amazon Quick Suite. Here we go. There it is. Meet Amazon Quick Suite, the agentic AI application reshaping how work gets done. Quick Suite helps you cut through the noise of fragmented information, siloed applications, and repetitive tasks to focus on what matters. They have a little bit of an intro video here. And in this intro video, if we were just to scroll through a little bit, they do actually show a little bit more as far as like the reports that it's doing. I'd have to look through this a little bit more. You can see sort of in this example, if I get that out of the way, it's doing research on companies as it went through. So key takeaways, it says here, Quick Suite is AWS's agentic AI application to help employees transform how they find insights, conduct deep research, automated tasks, visualize data. That also says it connects to your information across internal repositories like wikis and intranets, popular applications, AWS, Redshift S3, and even integrates with a bunch of MCPs and thousands of apps. And then, like kind of what the Google, right? Hey, ask any questions and get answers on it, and it'll connect to all your data. So, this
Very
is
similar.
what's
Very
that?
similar.
Yeah, it's the idea of this suite, right? I mean, the Microsoft suite. OpenAI is going to do this. I just talked about this the other day, that OpenAI on the show, talking about how it wasn't Sam Altman, but somebody else had said, expect to OpenAI ChatGPT to feel more like an OS in the next 6 months. And I think that this from Google, what we're seeing from Amazon here, what we know OpenAI is building, what Microsoft already has, with what I've been building with Azure and Foundry, although nothing about that build is easy. Nothing. It is a challenge every day, but the system is there. They're building it with Copilot and what they can integrate with Teams. And I don't know that I necessarily see it right now in Microsoft. I think it's getting there, but you have to do a bunch of like in-betweeners to try to connect things and kind of hack your way through it and get it to work. I think that will all get simplified pretty soon here. What it really says to me, Andy, on these stories that kind of we're grouping together is this is yet another indicator that any position that you're in, you don't have to be in an AI position, but any position you're working in as a company, it's in your best interest to start at least playing around with AI. Hopefully they're already using it, because your company is going to come to you someday and say, hey, this new Google Enterprise or the Quick Suite from Amazon, that's where we're going to live. We don't want you to go outside of that. This is our new ecosystem and how we're doing this at our company or whatever. And people are going to be somewhat expected to be able to understand what an agent is, or maybe how to do a quick prompt to solve one of their problems or connect the data. So it's in everybody's best interest to continue to like keep at this, even if it's at the basics, even if it's just a little bit of learning or listening to this show, because I think it's quite obvious that this is all going to become a big part of everybody's day-to-day work. Is we've been saying this forever, right, Andy? You're going to be working alongside your AI coworkers. Sometimes those, and like Ethan Mollick pointed out, sometimes those coworkers are going to take on all the work, and you're just going to be more of a passive, like, watcher of that work happening, because it'll be so reliable, it'll be so automated, it'll just happen. CRMs being updated, things like this. And then there's going to be times where you're the coworker, you're the co-pilot next to that AI, and you're working together back and forth with nothing that's being fully automated, but more of a together thing. There might be a mix of agents in there. There might be a mix of humans in there. So I think this is where we see the future going. And it's just people are going to have to adjust to that type of work, I think.
Yeah, each of these companies is building what amounts to a one-stop capable assistant interface that has access to every aspect that you have permissions to in your company. And that's going to be your first point of departure when you're doing any kind of evaluation, investigation, effort to improve the work processes in your company or your own performance in your company. You're going to go first to that AI assistant. And that's common in the language of the announcement from Amazon. It's common in the language of the announcement from Google. Here's your window into all your data and all of the power of AI to support you in this co-intelligence context that Ethan Mollick put forward in his book.
Right.
I wanted to point out that in the back of my mind, though, is this idea that there are tons of small startups that have been aiming at the small to medium business and enterprise application market. We talked about one just maybe yesterday. I showed you Tasklet, which is this very simple workflow automation agent that there's no diagrammatics or anything. It's just a text box, and you tell it what you want, and it's going to automate that process for you. You have to set up the connectors and everything, but it's then going to do all that for you. Well, how big an opportunity is really available to that very well-funded and well-backed? I mean, it's the founder's the co-founder of Firebase, okay, like inside Google. So what chance does he really have competing with Google Enterprise now, right? Which is going to provide similarly agents and already pre-built agents for most of the typical kinds of workflow automations that need to be done in an enterprise.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's gonna be, I think these next 6 months or so are gonna be interesting going into like Q2 of 2026. I think we're gonna see some big moves into some of these areas. I mean, it'd be interesting to see what OpenAI does with this as well. Okay, let me pivot to a new or sort of a new news story here. This one I actually first heard about to track this back. I first read about this in the Neuron, which is a AI newsletter that I happen to like, as well as many others. But this one came from the Neuron, and then I followed a link that took me to X, which then was a post. Then what the post did, because they were talking about something that Ethan Malik had posted. So follow me on this on the report, the path here. But what I found interesting about it is the person on X had posted and said, "Well, here's a link." And when I clicked the link, it was a summary inside of ChatGPT. So I said we went all around the horn here, but since that's what we got, I thought it was interesting. And what this is about is the paper. It's a paper, the 3H paper, showing what human work the American public thinks is morally permissible to replace with AI.
Yeah, I saw this. The revolting section.
Yeah.
Morally repugnant, I think, was the terminology they used. It was very interesting. It's
Exactly.
morally repugnant to automate with AI this set of things, and it's not so repugnant for this set. That's really
let's pull up a few of them. This is, again, I'm using the ChatGPT thread that the person on TikTok, or rather X, did, but you can see their I mean, I'm not as used to seeing people do this. Like, here, I put together a quick ChatGPT thing, go look at it. I've done it internally. I've just never thought to do it like publicly and say, well, I already put a post together, so you don't, whatever, you can go look at that research. But you can see what the person's prompt was up here. So then getting it to thought for 43 seconds, what each paper measures and how. So they're talking about what their scales were, and then the rankings here. So public moral boundaries, where AI is repugnant versus fine. Most morally repugnant examples: clergy, childcare workers, marriage and family therapists, police and sheriff's patrol officers, funeral attendants, and actors. And then for the least morally repugnant, file clerks, search marketing strategists, transportation planners, data entry keyers, janitors and cleaners, and cashiers. And there's more in there, like more task-oriented stuff in this thing. I'll keep it up on the screen, but like, I don't know, Andy, like some of those, like, okay, I guess clergy, but we've certainly talked about AI in religion and how that might impact things. Will you eventually go to some house of worship and either
have an AI sermon, yeah,
it's an AI sermon, or it's an AI sermon that you don't know was an AI sermon,
right.
And the pastor or otherwise the clergy is there to recount that as if it was their own.
We should share prompts of how to generate a really good sermon.
Yes,
you are Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
Give us a really compelling introduction to the morality of whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and you can't tell me clergy or people aren't using this in the churches right now, but I get what they're saying. Childcare workers, I think I would agree with that one. I don't know. Marriage and family therapists. No, I actually think there's a lot of ways that AI could be less biased in a marriage and family therapist. So I'm not sure I agree with that one, but that's what the American public is saying. And then we have police and sheriff patrol officers. Yeah, well, there'd have to be some robotics and AI involved with that one, probably. Funeral attendants. My aunt was a funeral attendant for many years, and so I have a lot of respect for that role. I'm not really sure how AI would play a super factor right now. And then actors, which it's interesting to see that there's, what I'm interested to see with the actors, Andy, is like over time how that number falls. I don't think actors is going to stay in the morally repugnant forever. I just don't.
Well, I think what's common about all of those that are the moral objection, what we would have moral objection to, are those roles that humans play where there's a need for some level of empathy and understanding. And I think the knee-jerk reaction and why people score those as morally repugnant is that we have a fear that there won't be the underlying empathy in a robotic police officer.
Right.
But the reality is that the robotic AI police officer would be much better controlled than the off the rails kind of guys you see on social media who've been filmed by the
Mhm.
supposed perps that they're stopping, who have absolutely no no criminal history and no infraction either, but there's just some kind of alignment between people who decide to be a police officer and some need for authoritarian power on their own part, at least in these small circumstances where they're stopping a car because they didn't like something about the look or the behavior of that car at that moment. Anyway, that
Yeah.
ends up being an objection, but I think that I'm fine with, and I believe that robots will inhabit most of those things. But now when we get to actors, actors is a different thing, because we want, in our vicarious experience of a performance in acting, we want to believe that that's a real depiction of human behavior and a
Mhm.
real representation of what somebody else's life experience was. And to have that automated and delivered by AI does sort of tinge the experience of the emotional impact of an acting performance, I think.
Yeah, look, it looks like right now the American public agrees with that. That's not something one. I think it'll be interesting to see how that because it'll be murky, right? How that all gets sort of played out in the future. If I'm not going to sit here today on October 10th, 2025, and say, oh, I would never see a live play with robots on, that's all AI robots, whatever. I'm not going to say that. I don't know. I don't know if that's a type of entertainment that I might find really enjoyable or something. Does that mean I would stop seeing plays? I was just talking the other day about getting tickets to go see Les Mis. Like, I definitely still want to go see Les Mis because I remember just how powerful of a musical that is. And I definitely want to see humans doing their best with blood, sweat, and tears on stage. Well, in my case, 100 yards away from the stage because I got the cheapo tickets. But either way, I want to know, like, if I was so inclined, I could get out of my seat. I could walk down, the 19 step flights and to the front, and I could touch that actor. And that's a very powerful thing, just like musicians or anything else. I don't think that's going to go away. I think, if anything, live performances, I've said this forever on the show, I believe that live performances of art will only skyrocket. I think people who do carvings live, people who do, take chainsaws and carve things out of wood or blocks of ice or whatever, and are clearly not AI, actually think will have a premium to them, because in a world filled with more and more and more AI, and we're seeing that right now with all our Sora news and stuff, but in a world just filled with AI that's indistinguishable from fact, people are going to want to be able to touch and see.
In general, we're very interested because we're humans. We want to see what the best examples of human performance are, whether that's in athletics or that's in art. And once you start to see how AI can surpass the capabilities of human performance, we don't really want to see that anymore. What we want is something that's comparable to what we might be able to aspire to.
Yeah.
And that's why human performance, I think, is going to be persistent. Now, the public has voted on the things that they think should be automated. And I was surprised to see that search marketing consultants is one of them. That, obviously that's going to be substantially replaced by AI capabilities, but there's still something useful, I think, at least in my mind, about having somebody who's really knowledgeable about how to instrument and apply those tools in the pursuit of search marketing. So I think there's still going to be a place in the enterprise for somebody who's responsible for that.
I agree. And you kind of given a good pivot here. So let's go ahead and pivot to our bigger topic for today that you're going to kick off things. And that's that we're going to talk about a PRD, a project requirement document. But the reason I feel like that's a nice little pivot, whether you meant to do that swerve or not, is that there is a need for people who understand the general workings, even if it is AI. We're about to show that a little bit here, that just because the AI can do it doesn't mean that it does not require some expertise or learned ability to make it work better for you. Save money, save time, save aggravation, all of the above. So, Andy, why don't you kind of kick off the PRD discussion here, and then I'll talk after that about what I did, which I talked a little bit about the other day, and then I'm going to show what I've built so far in Lovable. So we'll kind of do that.
So So as context, what we're talking about here is using these really capable no code application development platforms. And truly no code, you don't have to worry about deployment. You don't have to worry about setting up databases. And Lovable is kind of the easiest version of that out there. And both Brian and I have used Lovable, and we're going to show you a process by which we arrive at the starting point, at least for many iterations to try to get to a refined application that could be published and used by other users. So what you're seeing on the screen right now is ChatGPT 5 thinking, and I start there, and I've started a project. This is called Chronicle PRD, and I'm starting a new project, which is I want to build something that'll help me collect all of the notes and recollections and memories and images and so on for an eventual memoir that I don't plan to publish because I don't think anybody's interested in my life in the general public. But I want something that's a memoir, that's a capture of my life experience that I'm going to pass on to my children and grandchildren. And you'll read, or I'll read aloud to you what the prompt is for developing the product requirements document for the coding agents to actually build this thing that I want as an application. So I'm going to read this out loud, but you can see first I added a couple of different documents to this project. And one of them is a taxonomy of topics and questions that you might ask in an interview process that I used Gemini to generate, actually. And then another earlier Life Chronicle description that I had done, but you'll see, and I'm going to read my initial prompt and then show you what happens when you ask a very advanced model with thinking turned on to develop a PRD for you. Okay, so I'm preparing a PRD for an app to be built using lovable.dev. I want you to study the attached documents, which were created before real-time voice interaction with chat assistants or agentic pursuit of broad objectives were available via APIs. I want a revised and updated PRD to provide for a self-directed AI agent that persistently engages with the user over years to prompt and record voice responses to the agent's inquiries about the user. And here are the objectives. 1, fill out a retrospective timeline of user accounts of their personal history. 2, collect observations and notes in the present about current day events and add them to the timeline of personal history. 3, solicit thoughts and opinions based on cumulative life experiences. 4, generate graphic and media-rich representations of various dimensions of that life experience. 5, communicate retrospectives to the user that assist in memory rehearsal and retention. And 6, become the privacy-controlled reservoir of full knowledge of the user from the collected data interactions, which is to be ultimately used as a foundation for an interrogative experience with an avatar of the user for friends, family members, and associates who have layered access permissions. Okay, and then I explain that I'm going, before you begin your research and assemble a complete PRD that I'm going to give to Claude Sonnet 4.5, ask me questions to clarify anything you aren't sure of until you're 95% confident that you can execute a PRD with a state-of-the-art design and service architecture for this life chronicling purpose. Whew, okay, so that's
great.
That's a great introduction to this model. And then here's what it did. Okay, say, awesome. That's a rich brief. I skimmed the 2 attachments and noted, what does it mean when your AI just skims? Did it really just skim it, or did it read every single character?
Exactly.
I think it probably read every character, but it likes to speak as if it's a user, a human user. Okay. So it's going to develop product scope and users. It's going to do an engagement model, and it has all these questions. Look, it's going to ask me to fill out all these questions. And so when I got these back, I said, wow, you really are digging into this thing, and you're giving me some really detailed questions. There's a total of 32 questions that I had to answer. And here's my answers to the 32 questions. Okay, so that took me about an hour to answer those questions carefully. And then it came back with more questions. It says, okay, you gave me a strong backbone to work from. I'm close to 95%, but a few targeted decisions will prevent rework later. And this is what Brian's going to talk about. I'll keep these tight and grouped. If you answer in bullets, I can immediately produce the PRD. Okay, here's the architecture and data questions. Okay, what is the graph database and vector store question? You know, how are we going to move forward with that? I have yet to answer these questions. That's going to be a project for today. Model and runtime choices, like which models are we going to use for the default agent? And I'm going to ask for it to make it selectable, you know, at least by the administrator. So that I can say, okay, right now, 4.5, you know, Sonnet 4.5 is probably good. 3.5 Sonnet may be adequate for this task and is a lot less expensive. I want to make sure I can figure out how to compare the output of one model to another as they grow, so that I can always turn on the one that's at the high value price point for effective performance in the application. User experience design questions, imports and deep research, blah, blah, blah. We're down. I have another 32 questions. A little odd that it came back with 32 each time, right?
Yeah.
You know,
where is that baked into the training model?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why 32? Yeah.
Yeah. So then let me tell you what we're going to end up with. I haven't ended up with it yet, so I can't show you that. But Brian has a completed PRD that he can show you. And I have for other projects that I've done, I have completed PRDs. But here's what it's going to do. I'll deliver a full PRD, the MVP, minimum viable product spec, plus a phased roadmap with end-to-end system architecture for voice, SMS, agent loops, storage, and permissions, data schemas for the database, for events, entities, relationships, embeddings, and transcripts, an API and job design to capture, classify, assert permissions, search and export, prompt and dialogue flows, this taxonomy driven to complete loops, so that if you haven't answered something fully, it's going to come back at you later, you know, to fill those things out. Vendor matrix for the database and cost ranges, security and compliance plan, and a QA checklist and success metrics. So it's going to be a full-on product manager for this project for me. That's ChatGPT 5. And in this project, Chronicle PRD, I'm going to come back with the designs that Lovable provides, and I'm going to give it to this model and get it to provide feedback on that.
Yeah.
To make sure that it's in alignment with the PRD that it developed and is going to retain as memory. Now, I want to show you one last thing before I pass it over to Brian. I said here, okay, good work. I'll prepare answers to your further questions tomorrow. Please retain this chat history for our continued work together on this project. And here, I'm going to read to you what it added to its updated saved memory. Ongoing project, preparing a revised PRD for a Life Chronicle app built with lovable.dev. The user will provide answers to my clarifying questions and wants to continue from this chat. Remember, key constraints already shared: prosumers first, SMS-led nudges, iOS plus web, permission tiers, including close friends, public tier indexable, meaning that people can actually search for and see things that are published in this application with public permissions, voice cloning permitted for an avatar, HIPAA on the roadmap because I might want to talk about medical things, and MVP is in English. Keep this context for continuity. Whew. It's doing a big lift for me in building an application that I've had in mind for a long time.
Yeah, you talked about this for a while.
Come to fruition with Lovable in the next months or so.
Yeah, I love this. Well, I love this idea. I want to use this app once you do all the hard work, Andy. I want to just use it. Okay. You can make me your first paid subscriber to it.
I hope. Well, no. I've already specified in my request for the PRD that there will be, for scaling of the operational, niceties of this application. I said there's going to be under 100 test users, and it'll all be free. And that's going to be providing the QA that's necessary. Yeah. I could never deliver on myself. So you're number one. You're in line. You're number one in line.
hopefully I can have something that people can test on this side too. So I'll just pull up my screen here and then just talk a little bit about how I did. Well, albeit I did not do as good of a job as you, and so I just learned a ton myself. But what I want to talk about is sort of how I did the PRD, and then I'm going to show it actually what I built inside of Lovable. So
Great.
let me bring this up on screen. So I won't bore people with like the first parts of it, but like you can imagine, I did what Andy did. I went through and I was as detailed as I could. And then just like for you, it brought back a bunch of questions, not 32 though, but it did bring back a bunch of questions. So it's like get into more description of the purpose, who's the users, the key workflows, what success looks like, which I always love that question. Based on what you handed off, we need a project plan. And basically what it was basically trying to decide is for Lovable specifically, based on some documents I had given it initially, which I literally went to the Lovable website and they have documents. They have web pages based on, hey, here's how to use Lovable. And I was like, all right. So I just took those URLs and gave it to ChatGPT and said, here, start here, because this is the product I'm going to use. So let's make sure we're doing what Lovable wants. Right. And it said, well, it wants a PRD, but it also wants this project plan SOW. So like we probably are going to end up wanting to have a hybrid. And I said, okay. So I started answering some questions here that I thought it needed to do. It's like, let's pressure test the idea. So strengths in your concept, gaps, right? So now I have to go and look at all these gaps and go, okay, yeah, geez, I didn't think about that yet. Okay, great. Opportunities to improve, bottom line. Okay, you can see I start answering with gaps about things I want to happen in there. And that's like updated here. And then, you can see on the right, of the teeny tiny on the right side, just how long this conversation is. So options for metrics, why it matters. And we went on and on and on until we finally got to basically this hybrid document that ended up being the first thing that I put into Lovable. Now, hindsight, I should have spent more time on the PRD. I should have pressure tested it more. I maybe should have given it to like Gemini Deep Research just to put it in a different tool and bang against it from that side, then bring it back again and continue to really flesh it out. I felt like I took some time with this. I didn't take enough time with this. And what it's caused me is some downstream issues, I guess, that I think I probably could have thought my way through early on. As an example, an API connector that I have for what I built, I could have thought through more that I know enough about an OAuth connection to understand what needs to be passed through. I wanted it to connect to a specific tool. I could have even gone and found the right documentation for that OAuth connector, just as one tiny thing. That would have immediately told Lovable how to do it versus paying Lovable to go find it. Because in ChatGPT, it's just part of my account. So I'm not paying more to have these deep conversations. I can go as long as I want, really. And then what you want to do is you want to minimize that as much as possible. So it's very, very specific to what Lovable is building. Okay. So with that in mind, let me pull this up. This is the website I built. It's for a company called Haya .ai, but just Haya with an AI. It's Haiya. I already own the domain, so don't try to get it. But what this is it solves a pain point that I'm aware of in my industry, which is I do sales consulting with people, but I don't really do the sales consulting. I do the AI consulting of it. And one thing that I have people ask me for over and over and over again is, Brian, I love that you're able to produce, the highly personalized emails that go out to prospects or leads. We love that. I have tools that people use all the time. But ultimately, they'll ask me about lead gen. Now, their leads might be in Zoom Info. It might be in Apollo. It might be in Clay or some of these other tools. Or they might have homegrown a CSV list of leads. And what they ultimately want to know is, hey, is it possible for me to sort of jump past the research and having to look at that for my reps and just get it to show me the actual outputs of the emails? And so what I did was I created a Haiya.ai, which is, I'll just tell you the quick story on this. This is an ode to my grandfather, my mom's dad, who would always say hi as Haiya, always, like the YA at the end of it, just the way he was. And he was just a jovial, fun Irish guy. And he'd just be like, Haiya, Haiya. and he was just super happy. He was the kind of guy, I grew up in this town called Peachtree City, Georgia. They had a golf cart and he waved to everybody that went by. Waved to everybody. I wish everybody would still do that, but he waved to everybody. And he would be driving his golf cart and kind of put his hand up, and do the kind of the wave off the steering wheel. And so my logo that I had Gemini create for me with using Nano Banana, both for the logo and stuff, that's what that's based off of. So I just wanted to kind of give a background of like why this is what it is. So Lovable created this whole landing page for me, make every email feel like a warm hello, one-to-one personalization at scale, powered by AI. Haya turns prospects list into personal conversations in minutes, deeply researched, naturally written, ready to send. And it has some other stuff in here. There is no demo there. You can see it's sort of breaking down what all the steps are going to be to it, ready to make every hello count. So now here's some really cool stuff. Number one, for my leads page, I can import by CSV. I can connect. I have a little issue with the connect from Clay, but you can actually even see here, it's importing from Clay. And before just a second ago, I might not have refreshed on this one. It's actually pulling in the different Clay tables that I've made in there. Oh, there it is right there, Haya AI. Now it's not importing, so I have to figure out where that issue is. I'm still having an edge issue with that, but that's something we'll work with Lovable on. You can kind of see what the fixes are here on the left. But basically what this will do is it'll pull in time leads directly from Clay, Apollo, Zoom Info, wherever people are building their lead lists. I went ahead and just threw in a couple of examples in here that I had Lovable just create for me so we could test. So this is the leads list, and you can see how you can do that and the information we get, right? The source was CSV when it was pulled in. Okay, so then we have the really thing that one of the hardest problems I solved was the knowledge. So this system needs to deeply understand my business. Now, I used one of my former clients, Dialpad, and so everything in here is Dialpad. But Andy, here's one of my favorite parts about this. If you go to upload a document in here, it'll take like a 55-page document and use the embedding process using Superbase, putting everything directly in Superbase, because everything was created. If we go over here, you can actually see all the databases that were created by Lovable Cloud. This is the genius of Lovable Cloud right now, as far as I'm concerned. You can see that there's 9 tables, 71 rows in that one, 62 rows in this one, of all the different drafts and knowledge items that have been created, right? So if we look at this, what it did was it basically created these knowledge items or cards, and it broke up the document and found where it was talking about product info versus value props versus case studies, all from one document that I gave you that was like a single source of truth. And it divvied that all up. It created, you can go into any one of these and add additional tags. Oh, that's weird that it's not bringing up the, that's an error. Okay. So obviously it should pull this up, but you can add in the different tags in there as well. It's telling you where it got that source from. This to me is I'm proud of this, because this is a really big win for taking knowledge and doing this part for the client, for the user, and building this out. So then this becomes the building blocks.
Was the tagging done automatically
Yep.
by the application? Okay.
Yeah, it broke it. It used semantic search too. And here's the other thing too. And I still don't think it's fixed yet, but I have a semantic search bar here at the top, Andy, that works just like Google Drive. It's kind of on again, off again. But if I say what case studies have I already shared? Right. And it's probably going to fail. No results found on that one. Well, that's at least not failing. So that's a win. But basically what this should be able to do is just do a normal Google Drive semantic search, and it should pull back whatever cards are identified from that.
So there's an extension of Supabase called PG Vector, which is the vectorization of a Supabase database. Can you see in your console here whether the databases that have been created in response to your prompts actually include PG Vector, or it's just you asked for semantic search, so it's doing some kind of embedding and vectorization in order to get the answer back? That's kind of a technical question, but
Yeah, if I understand it right, I mean, everything here is embedded and vectored, right? Everything that all the research is going to do on the lead, which I'll show you here in a second to generate the emails, also is. And then
Yeah.
it's working with semantic search to combine the pain points with the value props.
And it did that because you specified that in the PRD.
Yes.
You did. You made it clear that you wanted to have vector search or
Yes.
semantic search. Either one of those terms would have accomplished that. And then
Yeah.
without you necessarily needing to know how to do embedding of uploaded documents and
Right.
inclusion of PG vector in the super base thing. Yeah, which would have been just a few months ago, like 1 month ago, it would have been, a very complex additional process that would take a week of back and forth with the coding agent in Lovable. But
Yeah.
now,
I only started this project 2 days ago.
yeah,
So 2 nights ago, I've personally only put in less than 10 hours into this so far.
yeah.
And just over $25 to get it to where you're seeing it right now. Just think about that. Think about that. That is bonkers, right?
This is exactly why Nate Jones and others have said now's the time. Lovable has made it so that you should be working on it. And Nate Jones put out a complete thing that I haven't read yet on how to use Lovable,
Yeah.
and not only just how to use it, but do it. He's saying, this
Yeah.
is my recommendation for you. If you've been waiting, don't wait any longer. You need to jump in now and use Lovable as your introduction to it, because it's turnkey in the sense that you can just provide a PRD, and you don't even have to devise the PRD. You can let ChatGPT 5 do it for you, and then give that to Lovable, and then you're off to the races.
Yeah. And that was my experience for sure. I mean, from nothing to a website was very, very fast. Some of these other, like this problem solving for this semantic and this embedding took a lot of time, but back and forth and me explaining what it was. But so what this does now, getting all to the major thing here, is I left it up on this screen. This is the actual generating email sequence. So you can see now I can grab any one of my leads, right? And then I can say I want a 3 up to a 11 part email sequence to it. I left this on 3 just to let it run really quick. So check this out, Andy. This is all the deep research on the person, their company, their sub-industry intelligence, trends, technical shifts, vendor landscape. What's their day-to-day roles like? What kind of fire drills are they dealing with? What's a 3 a.m. worry that this person, Mike, who is the director of marketing at HubSpot, that's probably made up, but just so you can see it. What kind of tools is he using? His fire drills, career fears, what's some jargon and style, right? And then from all of that, what it does is in the back end, it says, okay, let's figure out what some of Mike's pain points are going to be, right? Then what it needs to do is that's all the background information. But of course, it needs to know what Dialpad offers, which was all the knowledge documents that I had in there. There was 70 from one document. It created 72 knowledge items, which I found really, really impressive. I could also edit them before they went live, which was really cool as well. So now you can see, like, for an instant email, this is what, I think this is getting close. So like, hey, Mike,
let me just interrupt and say, I love that it's giving you this suggestion, even after its own generation, say, consider shortening, because you're just a little too long on that one, but you didn't do anything. It's saying, yeah, you might want to tell me to shorten this one.
So you can say copy all emails, export it to a CSV, regenerate the sequence if I want. What I'm building into this, that it'll export it directly to like my Gmail or Outlook drafts, and it'll just set this whole system up for me so it's ready to go out the door. So but this is like what we're looking at now, and you can see the difference here. This is why I focus so much with my sales clients on getting things that are highly personalized. This to me is the difference of doing personalization at scale without doing the lowest hanging fruit. Let me just see that, Andy, you live in California, and try to make that something that's going to be relevant to you. Okay, well, if I'm the director of marketing, I want to say something like, hey, Mike, as a director of marketing in the software industry, you're constantly refining the flywheel model to drive growth. With the trend of AI-driven personalization, providing how each touch point contributes to full funnel ROI from first click to customer delight is more critical than ever. This is a common challenge with aligning marketing efforts with overall RevOps goals. At Dialpad, we specialize in helping marketer leaders bridge the gap between their initiatives and revenue outcomes. Our AI captures nuanced conversation data, providing a clearer view of what's really driving pipeline. For example, a client saw significant productivity improvement, so it's pulling in our success stories from the knowledge documents using one real-time transcription summaries, allowing them to tie marketing campaigns directly to sales conversations. Would you be able to explain how better conversation data could help HubSpot attribute ROI across your inbound methodology? And then when it picks up on 2, it's looking at that same point, but looking at it from a different angle. Then 3 is going to be the second pain point that it addressed. If it went out to 7 would be like the breakup email on it.
Yeah.
So Jude says, who owns this app? You were the employee. I own this app, Jude. I created it. This is mine. I built this on off hours.
Yeah. And it's really, it's a valid and viable product, in my opinion, that we'll talk about later, but I think you should make sure that you've got this cleanly, set up as a ancillary product that can be made available to other people. And to that point, I just want to point out to people who are looking at the screen, you see that blue action button up there that says publish.
Yeah,
that's how easy it is to create an accessible web application that you can then now I don't know whether in your PRD you set up the idea of subscriptions and whether that's a product.
I will be. I did talk about it in the PRD, but it hasn't been set up yet. But I'm going to connect this to Stripe and allow it to take payments for me, and that will all be hosted inside the Lovable account.
Yeah, that's great. So now one question. Notice it made the suggestion about, hey, consider shortening this.
Yes.
I didn't see an action where you could ask the AI to modify that one email. And I think that's an enhancement for you there. So that if it makes a suggestion like consider shortening, how do you implement that without having to copy and paste it out there and edit it manually?
That's true. Yeah. And so you can regenerate the entire sequence, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to regenerate this.
No,
so other things that I'm looking to add here, because people are going to want bulk options. And so what will want to happen is we want to be able to do several leads at once. And then generate all those and have like a progress bar that's like, hey, these are in the queue. It does take it takes like a minute or two for it to create these email sequences. But here's the thing. If Clay has done the lead gen, and I'll just pull up, I guess just as we wrap up here, I'll just pull up Clay, because I get it that not everybody knows what I'm talking about if I say Clay, which is fine. If you're not in sales, you're not doing leads, I get that. But basically, this is, here it is. This is Clay. Clay looks like a spreadsheet. It's just a very intelligent spreadsheet. But basically what you can do is you can create lists with a whole bunch of other, all sorts of features and functionalities. And then what you can do is as it's going off to the right here, you can see job title. But then there's all these AI functions that you can do. And essentially it's enriching the LinkedIn for me. It's summarizing LinkedIn directly for me. So if we look in here, this is the summary of that particular person's, Neil Shaw's LinkedIn page. But what's really good about Clay is this part here. It's going across 7, I think, different ones, including Zoom info, to figure out what the actual right email address would be. And so when I pull this into, I'm letting Clay do the work, right? Because Haya is about the communication. So what I'm saying is, hey, Haya, pull in the finalized work emails, right? And pull in this other information as well to enrich these leads. And then with my system, send highly personalized emails automatically, or to the point where you want it to be automatically, right? I mean, there's a point where a human's in the loop and you should be checking that and putting it in your drafts and things like that. But this is right out of my life. I mean, so this is something that I deal with and I hear all the time. And so if I was to recommend somebody building and doing a PRD, I would start small. If you've never done one before and you want to test the waters, don't go crazy. Andy's like, yours is complex, but you know what you're going after and you've done this before. You have a lot of experience. So I would say to anybody, like, either find something that's just super interesting to you, a topic, it doesn't have to be a problem, or just try to think of something that you feel like comes up again and again. It's just like a simple problem that you hear through your work or whatever, and then talk through it. Talk about what that solution is in ChatGPT with the PRD, come up with a solution you think is viable. You can see how powerful just Lovable is. And that enables people to then start kind of creating solutions. So, and you're going to learn a lot. Like I'm sure I burned through, you get 100 credits a month. I burned through those in 2 days in Lovable. If I did this again, I think I could do it more efficiently. The next time I would do it more efficiently. So by me doing this process, I'm also learning how to do the process more efficiently the next time, as you were showing, Andy, because you're way more hours experience than I do on this.
Yeah, and just to show how inexpensive it can be, if you're doing something simpler than what Brian was building, if you're not trying to create a production, subscription application, you just want to build an application for yourself for $25 a month. You get 100 credits. That's 100 edit requests. So if you're making something simple, you might only use 2 edit requests to create an application.
Yeah.
That's how inexpensive it could be. It's measured in dollars per application, not hundreds of dollars per application. Now,
even if I like think about it, right? And even if I quadrupled this and I had to use 400 credits, that would be $100. Okay, so I get it to a workable V1 and I get maybe some testers in there. And then I open it up to people at $9 a month. And I'm like, here, go nuts. Because at $9 a month, it'd be the easiest answer to do this, would be the easiest answer they ever had, right? So now I only need 10 people in the first month to recover my entire cost of building this.
Right. Well, aside from your time and investment.
Sure,
right?
sure. Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like if I'm willing to do that, right, then yeah. So I hope anybody watching this is like gets excited, I guess is what I would hope. I had been putting off and just needed the time to kind of do it. I actually have this whole project Bruno that is a whole separate thing. And I'm going to slow down on that one and do the PRD right, because that's very complex. But I'm going to take another swing at this with that project because I think that's going to be another really good use case. I was already building in Superbase. So let's see if it can do a better job and create all the connectors for the vector and all that kind of stuff, for the semantic search.
Yeah, excellent. All right, I'm impressed, Brian. Nice work.
Thanks, appreciate it. I'm impressed by Lovable. I don't know about so much me, but I'm impressed by Lovable. But it shows where this is going. So all right, listen, we're going to wrap it up for today and this week. We're done for the week, but tomorrow we will have our Conundrum episode going out. I'm almost done with that, so that'll go out tomorrow. We have our newsletter going out on Sunday. If you want to get that newsletter, it's free. You can go to thedailyAIshow.com and sign up for it and join our very much growing list of people who get that newsletter every Sunday. So don't be on the outskirts of it. It's probably going to change this week too, Andy, because we've had different smaller topics. So we'll see how the newsletter adjusts to the shows here. But regardless, that's it for today. Thanks for hanging out with me and Andy. I think it might just be you and me again on Monday. I'm not totally sure, but we'll have a whole lot more topics.
It's just us until Wednesday.
Unless Karl's in. Yeah. So anyway, listen, either way, every day is going to be fun. Andy and I are going to have a blast. If it's just us, we'll bring in other people as we can. As we said this week, thanks for hanging out with us as we sort of tried some new things. We learned a ton from this week. We're going to pivot. We're going to adjust. We'll do some things different and keep testing the waters and stuff like that. So thanks for hanging out with us all week, guys. And until Monday, we'll see you. Bye.